You're listening to Living with Louie. Well, welcome back. And as I had said last week, this week I want to kind of continue with with kind of sharing with folks um, the uh, the different stages of grief, and I've been specifically asked as to how did I deal with it, and how did I get um, on with acceptance. And one of the things that I talked about in last week's was a lot about denial and the fact that we actually, in my case, I didn't want to see it. I didn't. People saw things. I was like, nope, I'm fine. And as I had said before, I kind of turned a blind eye to it, and as if ignoring it was going to make anything any better. But, and again, this is in the very early stages, and even actually before I had my official diagnosis. Uh, and then the next set of emotions I think that comes creeping along is anger. Anger because I'm because things are not going the way they used to. Uh, I've I lost my job. I lost the ability to perform a lot of simple tasks, and I started to lose my ability to keep on task and to complete tasks. All of these things were happening, and they create frustration, and that creates, for me anyway, anger. And so I think that anger is certainly one of the things that happens in this grieving process that you kind of go through. Is that they even after you kind of know that things are getting worse, and as things get worse and you lose more of your independence, I believe it makes you more angry. And so as you go through that period of different things starting to fail. My speech was getting much worse, and my balance. All these things were happening, and there were no answers. And finally, after a couple of years of clinical observation and whatnot, we finally came to, and some tests, of course, the scans and things like that that they do before they came to the conclusion that it was probably dementia with Lewy bodies, and then was sent to John Hopkins, who concurred with that diagnosis. Um, that's when I went searching on the internet when they told me that that's what it was. And I found out that, my goodness, there's nothing but negative things there. Things that are telling you that your life expectancy is going to be substantially cut short. It just paints a really grim picture. And so um, I'm angry because why do I have this? Why me? I'm angry because I don't know how it's going to affect my family. I don't, all these things are going through your head. You're running through this gamut or gauntlet, if you will, of emotions, and it becomes very difficult. And so I think that takes place, and then I know that all of these things kind of together put into a box, and it becomes this or throws you down in this rabbit hole of depression, and it's not an easy place to climb up out of. And so some of the questions that I was kind of asked is how did you manage to get from diagnosis to acceptance. And I will tell you that with these different stages that you go through in grief, with denial, anger, bargaining, um, yeah, all these, the depression and everything, and then you can finally get to the point of acceptance. Yes. Okay. So I would say that um, the biggest help to me was I felt like my situation was one that I could do very little about. I I felt like, okay, this is it, and I am so thankful that I ended up with the team of therapists that I did. That I can't even begin to appreciate them enough, because they came in and they found someone who was probably pretty depressed, and I wasn't real eager to share things, but they they showed me that I could get up out of bed and I could start doing some things that would help me to better manage this disease. They actually taught me that there are ways that I can fight back. They taught me that uh, that the concept of neuroplasticity, or retraining your brain, if you will, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, that just a simple act of walking, I had to get off my toes, and that meant myself being very conscious about put your heel down first. And I have to still, even after over a year of this therapy and then trying to reprogram things in my brain, I still have to do that. I still have to remind myself, of these simple things that were automatic and in every other, before Lewy body. And I think that with the help of the counselor, I came to the point where I realized that I have this diagnosis, and B, there are some things that I can do to fight back. And now, am I going to win the mental decline battle? No. I don't think that anybody has figured out yet how to control the alpha synuclein proteins gathering on the brain cells. I don't know that anybody's figured out how to control that yet. So that part of this disease I can't do much about, but I can fight back on the physical front, and I keep working. I work out every day. I have uh, therapy, and on the days I don't have therapy, I will do exercises myself, keeping myself, because the muscle rigidity is a real issue with this. The stiffness of movement because of the muscle rigidity, it all can be combated through trying to keep your muscles as limber as possible, keeping your body as limber as possible, teaching your body um, how to control balance again. I mean, it's almost like 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 kind of retraining and starting over, how to stay in the correct position for walking. Keeping your weight back in your heels, not getting up on the toes, the things that create falls. And now, for me, that is kind of the process of denial and anger that I went through. I don't know that I spent a lot of time bargaining, other than saying, well, what could I have done maybe differently in my life that maybe I wouldn't be in this situation? But the reality is Lewy body is not anything that I chose. It's nothing you chose. It's nothing our loved ones chose. It's the hand that we're kind of dealt, and then we have to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And I think that you have a choice that you have to make. You can lay down and give up and say, well, woe is me, and this is going to be what's going to be the end, and that will probably turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will. It's probably one of, in my opinion, I think that mental attitude and your willingness to do what you can are going to place a huge impact on how fast this progresses. Um, I can tell you that I have noticed I decline in my cognitive sense. You've heard me talk about the fog. The fog is here much more often, and it's thicker. And I still have the hallucinations. I'm very happy that with the hallucinations, for the most part, I can kind of find my way through those with logic. Um, I do not own a little brown dog. However, I have seen this little brown dog on several occasions. And as a matter of fact, last evening I was trying to do some cleanup in the kitchen, and I looked down, and here he is. He's right there by my side, looking up at me, wagging his tail like, and I'm like, oh, okay, you're here again. And there it is. I mean, I've not had any hallucinations that really scared me. But if I want to go back and say that getting out of the rabbit hole and getting concentrating on a few positive things each day started that process. And the therapist showing me all of these things of trying to do something positive are the things that brought me out of that deep depression and into a place where I could accept what's happening to me and then decide I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to fight back. And that's where I find myself. I had a conversation with my counselor, and we were talking about how do you really describe these the grieving process and the things that we go through. And this is true whether you're grieving the loss of a loved one, you're grieving the loss of independence, or the many losses that we go through as we go down this journey with Lewy body. And what she told me about it's called a ball in a box metaphor that you can find if you just Google ball in a box grief, and you will find this analogy out there. And basically, what this goes to say is that the grief is like a ball in a box. It's at first and that on the box, okay, is a button inside the box. There's a button, and this button is what causes us to have the feelings of anger, the feelings of depression, the things that the uncomfortable emotions. So at first, the ball's real big. And so it's constantly hitting that button. And you're constantly finding yourself in this angry, frustrated, depressed area. But as time goes on, this grief doesn't go away. The ball maybe gets a little bit smaller, so it can move around in the box maybe a little more before it hits that button. But it is going to hit the button, and it does hit the button. And so if you get a chance, I would tell you to Google this ball in the box analogy and take a look at it. And I think that it'll make sense to you what they're trying to say. And I actually found this to be quite interesting and quite true. And then so hopefully your ball's getting smaller in that box, and if your ball is still big in that box, don't don't beat yourself up, because guess what? The days when the ball is smaller are coming, and hopefully that you can through your acceptance, you can find a way to make that ball smaller. There's a quote that I saw from Elizabeth Gilbert. She's the author of Eat, Pray, Love. At any rate, her quote says, "Deep grief sometimes is almost like a specific location, a coordinate on a map of time. When you're standing in that forest of sorrow, you cannot imagine that you could ever find your way to a better place. But if someone can assure you that they themselves have stood in that same place and now have moved on, sometimes this will bring hope." That is so true. And I think that speaks very much to one of the things that I try to accomplish with this podcast is that you're not alone. And there are others that are going down this journey. And I like to try to share with folks kind of what I go through. I also hope that this helps to educate people to the fact of Lewy body and raises awareness. That's really the sole function that I started this podcast for. And I can tell you that if there's anything else that helped me, it was learning to celebrate small victories. And I will go back to something I've talked about before, and that was that I can't do all of the things that I used to do, at least not the way that I used to do it. So when I have small victories with working on a project here at home, and I managed to complete it, tasks that I can complete, those small victories, those are the things that I think you need to celebrate, and those are the things that I think help us help me to have a little bit more of a positive mental attitude. And I think mental attitude, as I said earlier, is key. And so that's pretty much, I think, how I navigated through the grief and came to the acceptance of my diagnosis and the acceptance that I needed to work as hard as I can to try to fight off as many aspects of it as I possibly can. I hope that that listeners have are helped or can see some of themselves in what I'm talking about, and can know that you're not alone, and that there are ways to still have some quality of life after your diagnosis, and that is something that uh, I think that I have been able to achieve. Do I wish that things were back the way they used to be? Sure. But that comes with the acceptance of accepting where you are and what's happening, and the willingness to get up and try to fight it on every front that you can. One of the things that I have learned through this journey is that I'll have days that are better, of course, than others, and I know plenty of people that I've seen comment on it. That's exactly it. You have good days, you have bad days, and um, one thing that I will say is that there's on good days when I feel like everything's going real well, and you almost feel like you're normal, but you're still normal, but I think you understand what I'm saying. I then there are days that the fog gets real thick, and it just reminds you that Louie's in the house, and no, you're not taking the journey alone. And I hope that what I've shared with you maybe will let you know that, and give you a little bit of comfort, maybe a way to look and find your way to acceptance, and please try to make that ball smaller, and take a minute and look at that ball in the box. Thank you all. Please remember, folks, that we are 100% voluntarily funded by our listeners. So please go to the link and at the bottom of your favorite podcast provider, and you'll find a link there that says support the show, or you can find us on GoFundMe under Living with Louie podcast, and every dollar counts, and every dollar helps. So please take a minute and go in and support the show. We certainly would appreciate it. The only thing we try to do is cover our operating costs and equipment maintenance costs. So we thank you and have a great day. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this edition of Living with Louie.